neighbor said, could we have a coffee for all of our parents that are different? I won't say who that loving parent was, that wanted to have a coffee and invite all of our families with 2 moms or 2 dads. And I know the intention behind that person's mind, but what I want is our people with our little children with 2 moms and 2 dads. I want those 2 moms and 2 dads to feel so comfortable they come to everything we have, not just to the coffee of someone that's going to be like them. And I want you guys that aren't the 2 moms and 2 dads to reach out to the ones that are the 2 moms and 2 dads and say, welcome to Kiker, we're glad you're here. This is what Kiker's all about. We treat each other with kindness, dignity, and respect. We don't have to look the same, we don't have to be the same, we don't have to act the same, we don't have to believe the same. But what we do is treat each other with kindness, dignity, and respect. So welcome, we're glad you're here. That's what I want for our children. And I think that deep down you want that too. And so we teach our teachers skills and strategies that better prepare them and support them when they are faced with a family that has a student with 2 moms or 2 dads. Because that student who's 6 doesn't understand that we're making gifts for dad on Father's Day. Or gifts for mom. I'm going to tell you, coming from my mom leaving, I was that little girl, and I never got over not having a mom. I still wish I had a mom. I still look at all of you great moms out there, and there's a couple of you out there that I've said, I wish I had you when I was growing up. But you know what will make the difference is how the teacher normalizes. How the teacher helps you find someone special in your life that can be that missing person for you, that you as a 6-year-old maybe feel is missing in your life. That teacher can normalize that and help you. Well, let's make a card for your dad. Let's make a card for your aunt. Let's make a card for your grandmother. Why didn't you make a card for me? Why don't you make a card for Dr. Schneider? Can't tell you the cards and loves I get. And Darla helps us with that, don't you, Darla? You help us with strategies. With, okay, what do I do when this happens? What do I do when my student says this? What do I do when they blurt out this? How do I handle it? Because I know that, you know, we got to be real careful about what our little sensitive other ears say. And so Darla comes in to the rescue and says, this is how you handle it. And sometimes I'll do, Randy, 911, somebody said this in the classroom. Get down there. And Randy, bless her heart, she knows exactly what to say. And it can be about having those strategies for how to handle those situations, because there's not enough Randys to 911. But if we get all of our teachers trained on how to deal with those situations, then we can help the teachers, we can help handle it in the classroom. One of the things that it looks like at Kiker is normalizing differences by what we say and how we act or respond. Normalizing differences by what we say and how we act or respond. So sometimes you're going to hear me say boys and girls. Sometimes you're going to hear me say comments. Sometimes you're going to hear me say scholars. You're going to hear, what do you call it? You're going to hear me say, what somebody said it? A variety of things. Because I want all of our students to feel comfortable. Normalize differences by what we say and how we act or respond. So this is not a partisan statement, but I know there's polarization where the election comes into play. So on Inauguration Day, I stood here, regardless of who I voted for or didn't vote, and I walked up and down this line like I do every morning, and I said, today is boys and girls, today is Inauguration Day. You know what that means? That means our president, whoever becomes president, makes lots of promises. He has to promise to do certain things. And then he gives his word that he's going to do those things. And today, our president is President Donald Trump. And whether or not you or your family agrees with or doesn't agree with President Donald Trump, he is our president. And we're going to respect our president. And that's really all I said about it. And then I think I said, if there are, I don't even know if I said we're going to respect our president, but I think I came pretty close to just saying, you know, any other conversations you want to have about your inauguration, about who is president, or about the president, I want you to have with your dad and mom. I mean, with your parents. And that's another thing I say a lot of, by the way, is I encourage those children to come to you. Which is why we had a new teacher this year, and the kiddos had been going to their parents, and the teacher said to the children, why didn't you come to me if you had a problem? And so I pulled her aside, lovely young teacher, lovely, wonderful woman, didn't know, comes from a completely different school, and I said, you need to know that I've encouraged the kids since they were 3 to go to their parents about anything. You need to know that that's their first line of defense. Like, I don't care what happens at school and what you do, they get to go to their parents. That nothing is a secret from their parents. That we say that over and over and over to where it is just, so I expect I'm going to make mistakes when I have an audience of 1,000 plus, and that there are some things that are going to go home, and I know that things are going to go home said just a little incorrectly, and that's okay with me, because I'd rather you know it, you be concerned and call me, than make it up or take it for truth. Just like you'd rather me, if I hear something, call you and go, did you know that you guys are planning a trip or whatever, you know? So normalize differences by what we say and how we act and respond. Because I could have been very enthusiastic that day, or I could have been very glum that day. But when I stand there straight and tall, and I say the fact, and I move on, I normalize it, and we go off. And then you come in from your family, and you get to say how you believe, and I don't take that away from you. Does that make sense? Okay. Ideas about how we respond to certain situations where gender or identity are concerned, or where they might be brought to light. There are times when little girls want to play with trucks, and little boys want to play with dolls, when little girls want to play with trucks, or little boys want to paint their nails. And the way that I believe is that, again, we're all different. And if you, we went through this with my nephew. If you want to paint your nails, paint your nails. He's now a rough and gruff football player, you know. But my sister was so scared. She was so angry with me because I said, if you want to paint your nails, paint your nails. Whoo, she was mad. And bottom line is, I want kids to be who they feel they are and feel comfortable in their skin. And if they feel comfortable playing with other girls and they're a boy, great. If they're a boy and they feel comfortable playing with girls, fine, as long as it's appropriate, right? And so I have had to tell teachers, it's okay when they come to me all scared, so-and-so's playing with dolls. It's okay, take a deep breath, they'll be fine, be all right. It's okay, just let them do it. Tomorrow they'll probably pick up magnets. You know, it's okay, just watch. There are children that we can tell, my counselor and I, can tell have already self-identified in certain, how do I use the words, Donna?
Gender identification, they may be expressing or identifying.
They're expressing or identifying their orientation. Maybe not to others overtly, but you can tell covertly, or we can tell, or we've watched since they were young, and their parents will even tell us what they expect. Do we want those children to be treated differently or ostracized by other Kiker comments? No. So it's up to us as adults, number one, to normalize how we interact with them. One of my students loves to come and sing to me. He loves to do that. He loves to come and so what we do is he earns to come to my office. We pick out this Disney video he loves from whatever, and then he sings the song. And then he goes back to class. Done that for years. He loves to do it. Now, if I said Swifty, that's probably not the best choice. How do you think he'd walk away? Here I am, the principal, somebody that talks to them every single morning that I hope they respect, going, Swifty, not a good choice. Let's get you some trucks. I mean, would that be appropriate? Yes or no?
No.
Why not? Oh, I heard that. He'd feel ashamed. He'd start wondering what's wrong with me. Is it the red shirt I wore today? I mean, they're young. They're little in elementary. They're little. They don't know. Now, the next day, I don't come to morning assembly and say, guess what, boys and girls, Kiker comments. We have a young boy in our midst that loves to sing. We're going to all respect that. Do I do that? No! It's how I normalize it, and how the teachers handle it, and how we work with families, and how we work with that child, and how we are prepared if, I'm going to tell you this, by the time they get in 5th grade, a lot of times, kids know which ones are which ones, and it's fine. They don't even, it's unspoken. They love each other and they play. And they figure out ways to make it work. It's us that worry over it. It's us that worry how it's all going to play out. And the one that's the most worried is the parent of the child that identifies differently than what would be expected to be the norm. That is the parent that worries the most. Because they want their child to be loved, feel safe, and feel comfortable, and not be bullied. And I guarantee you this, Kiker is known, and I'm told this over and over, Kiker is known for our kids taking care of each other. For when they go to middle school, being that buffer. Standing in front of that kid and saying, we don't do that. Saying, I'm not comfortable with that. Saying all the words that we've taught them since they were 3 and 4 years old. But never once did we say, if somebody comes out as gay, you say this. That's never come out of my mouth. Anybody here heard that? But this welcoming schools, what I'm talking about, we've been doing since the day you knew me. Because it's part of who I am. This treating others with kindness, dignity, and respect. And it's not always easy because sometimes it means stretching your ideas. It means stretching what you believe is right. Well, guess what? You get to still have your beliefs. And I get to have my beliefs, and I want to treat every single student with kindness, dignity, and respect, and I want every single student to feel safe, comfortable, and welcomed at Kiker. Is there anybody here that doesn't want that for our children at Kiker? I didn't think so. And I could reach out to Kiker Facebook Live and get a show of hands, and nobody would say, no, we don't want that for, we only want that for a few of our Kiker comments. Nobody wants that. What welcoming schools is at Kiker? 4 more bullets. Understanding that there are a variety of learners with a variety of families, and all are welcomed at Kiker. All are welcome at Kiker. A curriculum that, now listen to this, a curriculum that helps teachers. This is not a curriculum for students. It's a curriculum that helps teachers identify reasons behind why a child may feel uncomfortable or bullied, and have a toolbox readily available to deal with situations such as that instance. Not real sure how I worded that, but in a nutshell, it's a curriculum that helps teachers identify reasons behind why a child may feel a certain way, why a child may feel bullied or uncomfortable, and have tools and strategies ready to deal with any situation. At Kiker, welcoming schools means ending name-calling and bullying of any and all nature. Now I'm going to stop there for a second. Are we going to end bullying, name-calling? I don't know. If I do, I will become rich. Because I guarantee you I will write the book on how to end bullying and name-calling. Because as early as I can remember, that has been my mission, is to end name-calling and bullying. And while I cannot get in their little bodies, I can set the norm. And if you go to our student handbook that I put out at the beginning of this year, you will notice much of what's here is in that student handbook as this is our philosophy, these are our beliefs, these are our values, these are the things that you hold up to be dear. You hold them up to be dear. You love the fact that comments come to school and feel safe and comfortable. And you want that for your child, and you want it for other comments. I believe everybody that I've spoken to has. Now, I believe, and I know that on Facebook this weekend, there were some comments that, well, there was bullying about X for my child, and they never did anything about it, but they're going to do something about this. No. First of all, if we know about it, we're going to handle it. And you're going to be on the other end of that line, and we're going to be talking to you if we know about it. There are times we don't. There are times people don't bring things to our attention. We are the largest elementary school in Austin, Texas, people, and the highest performing in reading and math. We don't know everything. So if somebody is being bullied or mistreated or doesn't feel safe or comfortable coming to school, and they're not letting the teacher or us know, we can't mind read. And then they say, Kiker didn't do anything about it. Well, I sure hope that my champions out there that know Lori Schneider say, I guarantee you this, you take it to that principal and she will do something about it. You may not always know what it is that we're going to do about it, but I know Lori Schneider, and she wants those kids to feel safe and comfortable. And you bet your bottom dollar, she'll probably have an assembly about it the next day. And there are a lot of people that will send me notes and say, Dr. Schneider, can you do a morning assembly about so about calling kids fat? Because that's become the latest thing, calling kids fat. And sure enough, I'll stand up and talk about it. Anybody here know that for a fact? Thank you. And that's part of it. And then finally, it's allowing a child to be who they are. Letting kids come to school. That's why I'm not a person that, if I ran a middle school or high school, they could wear whatever color their hair they wanted. They could wear whatever they wanted to wear as long as it wasn't a distraction to learning. Because I want individuals to be individuals. I want them to be able to express themselves. Because that is where our young artists begin. That is where our young politicians begin their life. And our young astronauts. Some of them women. Yay! Our young scientists, engineers. And some of them women. Yay! We need those women problem solvers. They've got stick-to-itiveness. That's what it is at Kiker. What it's not a curriculum taught to teachers that is then turned around and taught to students. It's not that. It's not a curriculum for the classroom. It's not identifying students by gender or bringing it up by the teacher so that the teacher can be had. In other words, it's not, oh, we have a gay student in our class this year, boys and girls. Let's talk about that. That would be like saying, oh, we have a Hispanic student in our classroom this year. Let's talk about that. Now, there are sometimes situations when the cat has gotten out of the bag, so to speak, or it's been a little premature and we've had to do a Randy 911, or we've had to bring in Darla and we've had to get some help in having those conversations. And when that happens, we send a letter out to the families and say, this got brought up at school today, this is how we handled it, and these are some talking points for you. Anybody ever received a letter like that? Oh, good. It's only happened 2 or 3 times. Okay, thank you for holding your hand strong and high, because I teach our children that that's what a risk taker does. Because a non-risk taker does this because they're waiting to see what everybody else does. Do you want your child to be a risk taker or a follower? I want my Kiker comments to be risk takers. That's why I teach them to put their hand high in the air. What it's not is public conversations when others feel that they are different. It's not public in the classroom. Okay, Janae feels different today. Let's all talk about that. It's about having those private conversations. And private conversations can be healthy, and the curriculum that Darla brings to the teachers, when the teachers don't know what to say, Darla says, well, have you thought about this? Here are some ideas. Or Darla says, call me. Here's my cell. That's one of my favorite lines of Darla's. Welcoming schools is not holding judgment of others. It's not encouraging students to stop talking to teachers or parents. or creating a clear path. Creating a clear path towards conversation is healthy. So we don't want our children to feel like this is a place where they have to be quiet. We want them to feel, whoever is that person, whether it's the adult that lives in their house, their teacher, their counselor, or their principal, however they feel, whatever is bothering them, we want them to feel safe enough to come and go to an adult they trust. And believe me, kids have left the cafeteria and went to the office and said, I need to see Dr. Schneider right now. And so you know what I do? I say, well, by all means, bring them back and let's talk. And isn't that what you want? Boy, when that day happens, I celebrate because I know then that I've been a good principal because I've got children that know they can come to me and it's safe and they can have a conversation with me. On the website for Welcoming Schools, remember we're taking bits and pieces of it. The language is used, creating LGBT inclusive schools, preventing bias-based bullying, creating gender-expansive schools, and supporting transgender and non-binary students. At Kiker, we believe and I guess I should say at Kiker, Lori believes that the language written here is not language that we're comfortable using because we don't set apart a particular group of people. That's how I feel, personally. I don't feel like we set apart a particular group of people. We are going to give you some information in a few minutes about statistics. When it comes up, we're going to handle those things, but just like we're not going to have coffees for all of our Hispanic people, we're going to be inclusive. That's the bottom line. We want everyone to feel so included that it is normal to walk to HEB, that your child walks into HEB, sees two women standing together, and might look, but keeps on going. Or has enough, or they question it. What's that about? But that there's not a ridicule in place. Ha ha ha, Mommy, did you see what I saw? Okay, we're teaching. My hope is that we've taught them to treat others with kindness, dignity, and respect, no matter how different they look from you. Because we also have people that dress very differently. So we could change this to creating culturally diverse. But I believe it's about everything we're diverse in. So at this point, should we take questions or should we give them the handout now? Should we take questions and concerns now?
Why don't we give them the handout?
Okay.
And see what we come up with from there and have a conversation about it.
Okay. Just real quick, are there any burning questions or from what I said so far?
I have a very quick question.
Yes.
We're talking on the website, the following languages on the website. Is there more language than just this, or is this all we're concentrating on right now?
Excuse me?
Like, is there more language than just LGBTQ?
On the Welcoming Schools, and Darla, you can correct me if I'm incorrect. Welcoming Schools does have a specific push toward LGBTQ. Okay?
Like you mentioned earlier, cultural differences.
Right. And so, exactly. So it's not on our website. This is a Welcoming Schools website that people have gotten. So what they've done is they've gone to the Welcoming Schools website and they've said, oh, they're bringing that to Kiker. And it does set apart LGBTQ as the common thread that we're talking about. And so we might, with our teachers, bring it up when we talk about how much certain children get bullied or this kind of business. But what they're doing is they're comparing Kiker and looking at the Welcoming Schools, and they're trying to merge the two, and we're not merging the two. We're saying we've already been, we should be called Welcoming Schools. And we can show you how to do it right, because we've been doing it for 13 years. Before I ever heard of Welcoming Schools, we were a welcoming school. Look up. Look at your children. Look at who they choose to play with. So what that somebody comes to school and doesn't have all of his fingers? They just play. We don't pull them out and say, we're going to talk to you about. Do you understand what I'm saying? And so, but Welcoming Schools does have the push towards one end of it, and it's important to talk about, and it's important to give our teachers feedback and ideas, and I'm going to let Darla also talk about it, but Welcoming Schools is not Kiker, and Kiker is a welcoming school, just with all of the elements, with everything. We want to welcome every child. 2 moms, 2 dads, 1 sister, 3 goats in the backyard, eats this for lunch, plays with these kinds of people, prays this way, doesn't pray, says the pledge, doesn't says the pledge, votes for Trump, doesn't vote for Trump. Whatever it is, we teach them to have respect for each other. Yes, ma'am.
I agree with you about everything about welcoming children, and no one should feel like they don't have a place at school. My question is, I hear that at Clayton, for example, they have a socio-emotional learning component, especially in kindergarten, where they actually bring home a worksheet each week, where to encourage the parents to work with their kids. So why are we doing this program, which is geared towards a very specific kind of social emotional issue, and not doing a more holistic social emotional?
That is a great question, and I didn't pay her. We do SEL, we do social emotional learning, and we've done it for years. And that is with my morning assembly, when we talk about self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, responsible decision-making. We've talked about it for years, way before it was, I did it as a classroom teacher before it was even called SEL. So we do a lot of that. We have not sent home the paperwork because we believed at the time that whatever we're talking about is interwoven into what we do. And like I said, some things come up naturally. If they're, we do send home on Fridays everything we talk about in the Kiker comments. Excuse me. And that's where that's where a lot of our social emotional comes in. But some of the social emotional learning that you're not going to see that we've adopted, or that you're not going to recognize as social emotional learning in that program, and that we are a social emotional school, is when I stand out front and shake hands with kids, or say goodbye at the afternoon, or when teachers stand in front of the door and shake their hands. Social contracts. When teachers talk with the kids at the beginning of the year and say, how do you want to be treated? How do you want to be treated by me? How do we want to treat each other? And how do we want to handle conflict? And they give those 4 questions to the kids, and the kids turn and talk. And then at the end, they come up with, how do we want to treat each other? And most of them, invariably, they're all over the room, all over the school, and they come up with how they want to treat each other, and inevitably, on almost every one of them, there's a line that says, treat each other with KDR, or KDR, and they sign it. And everybody in the class signs it. So there's also lessons that go with it. I did the whole the entire rollout I did at morning assembly the first year it came out. Now the teachers do it in their classrooms. They haven't sent the paperwork home, and maybe we should have. Maybe we should have. We haven't, because we get a lot of pushback on sending too much homework home, and so maybe we should have, in hindsight, sent that home. My way to kind of equalize the balance there was to put it in the comments and say, this is what we've talked about. Talk about this with your family, because if you hit those elements, you're using the same language that I use. And a couple years back, I wrote our student handbook, the student handbook piece that talks about expectations. I wrote it to children. So when you're reading, so literally all you have to do is read it. That's a social emotional kind of thing. So we have brought that program to Kiker and have been doing it way, way, way before Welcoming Schools. And Welcoming Schools, again, is not to turn around and teach to children. It's to make sure teachers are equipped with skills, strategies, and language. Yes, ma'am.
I don't have a question, not a concern, I have a statement. So I appreciate that you're doing this. I appreciate that you say that you don't want to share this with children, you don't want to call anybody out. But in teacher training, as a former high school teacher, it's important that teachers understand the difference ADHD student.
Oh yes, we say to the teachers. I'm saying we don't do it to the students.
Right, exactly, and I think it's important for teachers to know
Yes.
how to help a
Oh,
specific
yes.
population
Yes.
of kids in need of more assistance than others.
Yes, yes, and that's what I'm saying. We do. That's why I'm trying to say this is more. So we've done that social emotional learning, and we're going to keep doing it. Everything I've been telling you, and the other piece is just helping teachers learn. And again, it's a 6-hour training. I don't know, on the website it said something like 600 hours, but it's a 6-hour training for teachers. And yes, we do bring up the language. And I'm going to let Darla talk about that in a few minutes.
Yeah, and thank you. Thank you.
I'm happy to
for being
give the
here
mic
this
off.
morning. And I'm so glad that you're making so many connections to what Dr. Schneider is saying, because I think it really reinforces the first statement that you see at the top of this page, that welcoming schools is an anti-bias approach that supports SEL in a developmentally appropriate way. That really is it in a nutshell, and it really is that integrated approach. In thinking about your question that you had about what is welcoming schools, what does it encompass? I think if you did go to the website, you would see support for this last point of research here, that 4 out of 5 students who are harassed or targeted because of their identity, including race, national origin, gender, actual or perceived sexual orientation, religion, or ability. That is very much echoed in the format for welcoming schools and what the training looks like. I also think a lot of like what Dr. Schneider has said, that this is an opportunity for a staff to engage in conversations. It's almost not even really a training or a curriculum for the teachers. It really is a framework that says, hey, just like you were saying a second ago, we're gonna look at family diversity and what that means. We're going to look at some of the statistics around bullying, and we have them here, and they continue to change. We're gonna look at gender and explore things like the gender continuum, not so that we can go and teach that, but so that we have an awareness and we develop a mindset and a toolkit to respond. That's really it. That's the biggest component of it.
And we do address, exact words. We bring it to light so that it's not a scary thing when they hear it from students or something like that, with teachers.
Yeah.
So that's the part I keep trying to, like, if I could have gotten on Facebook. But Saturday I was in bed, I was bedridden this weekend, but because of my legs. But I wanted to go, people, let me give you some real facts. But I was glad it was today, and it actually made me feel like maybe I should have done more. Maybe I should have sent out more. But there is that separation of what we bring to the students and then what we make our teachers aware of, right? And so our teachers are going to be made aware of the continuum and words and lingo and things that maybe they've never heard, things that sometimes maybe I've never heard. But that doesn't mean we're going to turn that around and use it with kids. It means we're going to be prepared and ready should a situation evolve that needs our attention.
Yeah, and to even reinforce what you're saying too, Dr. Schneider, about that, is that when we start this work with the staff, we work from a set of norms, and that's on the back of this page. And those norms are kind of like a promise that this is how we want to show up and do this work together. And that's a very important part of it, because we want everybody to feel comfortable in that learning space, the teachers too, just like we want our students to. And one of the things that we emphasize quite a bit is that this is not about changing beliefs. This is about creating a more welcoming, safe, and inclusive school. And we also have to really stay grounded in that mindset that we are all in a different part or place of our journey of understanding. And that's why one of the norms that is the most important probably is the one that says expect and accept non-closure, which basically means that, hey, we're going into this work knowing that we're not going to walk out of it with a new math curriculum that we're going to turn and teach to students. It's not like that, because things are constantly changing. Our world is constantly changing. The way that we need to embrace different ideas and kind of examine our assumptions is constantly changing. So we have to expect that, and then we have to accept it so that we can really have honest, open conversations. And we also want everybody to feel safe in that conversation. That's very, very important because that's not what we want to do. We don't want to create a situation where people don't feel safe to speak their truth. So some of the other norms too, you can see on the back there.
Can I say something else? Also, you're going to find that within our faculty, there may be, I'll say it, there may be teachers that are gay or teachers that are straight. Some of the teachers, and I'm using the word gay liberally because we know that I don't want to point out somebody and say there's lesbian, gay, whatever. I'm just using the term holistically. And that person came to me at the end of last year and told me that staff members had name called that person. I'm trying to not use pronouns. And that just hurt my heart. That hurt my heart. And so that tells me, you know, our staff really needs training on treating each other with kindness, dignity, and respect, whether we believe in it or don't believe in it. Because it's not, like I said a while ago, even about partisanship. When I stand up and talk about the president, or I talk about the inauguration, or I talk about the flag, or I talk about Veterans Day, you know, there are certain things that we are respecting that may border one way or the other our beliefs, but we're giving honor and respect. I'm always gonna, I saw a guy with a Vietnam cap on at CVS the other day, and I mouthed, "Thank you." And he looked around, and he was an old guy. I shouldn't say old guy. He was an older gentleman. He was much more mature than I am. Much more mature than any of you. And he came over and he said, "Were you talking to me?" And I said, "Yes, I just wanted to say thank you." And he said, "Thank you. No one's ever done that for me." And so it's just about having that. And whether I believed in the Vietnam War or didn't believe in the war, I was going to honor that person.
And something else to think about with welcoming schools too is that it opens up a dialogue for conversations about all different ways that we can be more welcoming, safe, and inclusive, including just like the political climate, like you mentioned. You know, when we started these conversations, that wasn't even something that we were discussing. And now we have a framework and we have norms to have open and honest conversations and explore ways that we can respond as educators. Not teach a lesson about, but respond. So that if something does happen, like that example you used about the lunch, if a first grader says, "Oh wow, that is so weird, their lunch smells weird. Why does their lunch smell like that?" You know, they don't know, they're just being honest. That we go through strategies. We have strategies that teachers explore, like, okay, so the first thing you might say is acknowledge the difference. Like, yeah, the lunch might smell different than yours, doesn't it? What does your lunch smell like today? You know, you ask some questions. You explain the facts that, well, perhaps in their family, this is a spice that they use quite frequently, that they feel really comfortable and they like. What do you like? You know, and that's an example of how a teacher would have tools to navigate.
We have two questions.
Yes, I know, you had a question
I'm
first.
sorry, I have
Okay.
my hand on this call, I've got to get to
Yeah.
it. I just wanted to say thank you. I love that you're equipping our teachers to try to create the same environment that I'm trying to create at home so that they get the consistency, because even though it looks like I have a traditional family, our family is like a mini United Nation. I swear in our family we have one of every religious group, lifestyle, background, and so it's great that they're just getting the consistent appreciation of diversity.
Thank you. Help me out,
Thank you.
Facebook.
Thank you. Thanks for spending your time here this morning.
Yeah.
Yeah. You had a question.
I do. Share this. I wanted to first just quickly acknowledge something of an elephant in the room,
Okay.
which is that when these discussions have happened on social media, there has been a lot of emotion involved in them, and it's been really hard, I think, to have the opportunity to express and really discuss our concerns in a way that conveys at the same time the respect that we all want to support in our school and in our families. I don't think anyone here is not in complete agreement with what Dr. Schneider teaches our children, and we love being here. You know, we love it. I have a son with autism, ADHD, well, high functioning, he's Asperger's, and so he's both an absolute mess when it comes to his behavior, and he's both a potential target for bullying. He's both a potential bully and a potential target. teach him the way he should treat others and not be just frankly an asshole. So what I want to ask though is I want for all of us to have empathy for other parents. When we have concerns or questions about how things are being approached at school, let's not just assume that we have poor intentions. Let's not assume that the other side of the discussion, is just automatically bigoted because we have the question about maybe how something's going to be implemented. You know, I think all of us are here because we want more information and we want to be part of this community. It's a great school, and that's what I love about it is what we're here discussing today. And I just think most of us want more information, and more information is going to make it easier. It's going to help us all be on the same page. And so in that vein, my question is, will you make the content of the training or whatever there is that's been given to teachers, will you make that available to parents to review? I think that will put a lot of minds at ease.
So one of
Can I address the first part and then you address the content part? So first of all, I do want to say that I want to respond to if my behavior about Facebook symbolized disrespect, then I throw out my amends, because that is not what I was trying to do. I don't get that link, so I was just contacted by lots of people going, boy, it's being flooded. So I don't even know if you all are in the room, the ones that were Facebooking. And so I meant no disrespect other than in the absence of information, people make it up. And I wished that I did have access, because I would have gotten on and said, let me give you some clarifying facts, please come to my coffee talk, here's some information, because I'm not naysaying the person that, I don't know, somebody said a person, so I don't know if it's one person or a lot of people. I just was told by a couple of my teachers and a board member and some other folks, just be ready for your coffee talk, and there's a lot of groundswirl around it. And so I intended for this to be the talk, to start that conversation. And unfortunately, what happened, I think, is that when I said we're going to talk about welcoming schools, people automatically went onto the website, which this is me running a school of 1,050 and missing something. People automatically went to the Welcoming Schools website and automatically made an assumption, oh, that's what it is at Kiker, okay, and then worry and fear started, and that's what happens, and that's natural. I maybe should have sent out more in hindsight about what it is going to be at Kiker and what it's not, but I honestly hadn't even thought to do that until someone brought it to me and said, this language is on, why are you not using this language? Because you're misleading us by, I mean, not in a mean way, but you're misleading us by not telling us this, and it never dawned on me, because I'm thinking, well, no, I'm not misleading you, because we're not doing that with the kids. And so it gave me a lot to kind of swallow and digest and think about this weekend. And of course, anytime you're leading a school and leading from where I lead, which is my heart, and really wanting the best for all of our children, I am going to make mistakes. And so if the person that was talking on Facebook, or if several of you are here, my comments about Facebook, while I might have referred to 600 hours instead of 16, just joking it off, I mean no disrespect to the person. I always want to show kindness, dignity, and respect to each person that I come into contact with, and I should have handled that better, so I apologize.
And just to give you a little bit better idea of what the framework looks like. So when a school makes this brave commitment to start these conversations with staff, there's 6 hours of training. The staff is part of that process to make that decision typically. After the 3rd module, there's a family engagement session, which is what this is. So Kiker has done a beautiful job of following the training protocol for this. And then at the very end, the last module, the last hour that we spend together as a staff, after we've explored and had all these different conversations, we've followed the norms and examined some assumptions, and think too, there's a reason that we spend all year long on this training, because it's a lot to digest. And we do a lot of chunk and chew. We learn some for an hour, and then like a month later we come back, we learn a little bit more. Because we need that time to digest. It's a lot. It's a lot to process. But at the very end, we take some real intentionality around what does this mean for us at Kiker or at our campus? How does this merge with what we are doing already to create a welcoming, safe, and inclusive environment? And how do we want to respond? It could be something little, like I'll give you an example, what one school decided to do. And it's not a curriculum. It's not like, okay, first grade you're going to teach this, second grade you're going to teach that, we're going to totally change this. It's things like instead of doing, and the PTA decided this, instead of doing muffins for mom or donuts for dad, they decided to do pastries for two, a loved one and you. So making just a slight change like that, or shifting the way you address caregivers in a newsletter, or maybe choosing a different piece of children's literature when you're going to do a sequencing activity in language arts that might be a little more inclusive, can speak volumes to families and students that maybe didn't feel reflected before. That's the bottom line. We all want to feel reflected. We all want a sense of belonging. We all want to feel included. And so at the very end, we'll spend time as a staff looking very closely at what is that going to look like and sound like at Kiker. And it's different at every school, as it should be, right? And I think that's a great idea to come up with, I don't know, some type of plan for what this is going to look like and feel like at our school and what it's going to mean. I can tell you, though, that it's not going to mean that, okay, starting next year, we're all going to be doing these lessons on this day. It's about a mindset of awareness and building a toolkit, not changing beliefs, but just being like, oh, okay. It's kind of like, I remember when I taught first grade and I really learned how to teach fractions. It was like my eyes had been opened and like, oh, wow, I never thought about that. Students need to understand fractions from this perspective. They're only 5 or they're only 6. It's no different than that for teachers. We're learners too. We're lifelong learners all the time. So, does that help answer your question about if it would be available? Yeah.
Will it be available?
Will it be available?
Whatever. I think when we complete the module at the very end and we determine as a staff what that's going to look like and sound like, I don't know. What do you feel like that's something that...
I think what might be more beneficial because of the making up information is bringing the information and doing another coffee talk where we go through it with and say, this is, because I believe there are some pieces better geared toward middle school and high school. Yeah. And so when people are looking at it, I don't want them to think, I mean, like I said, looking at a chunk of information, not knowing the premise behind it, people are going to make their own judgment. They're going to make it up, you know? And I'm not there to go, well, we're going to do this, or we're not going to do this, or we're going to modify this. I do believe in welcoming schools. I do believe in the premise behind it, or we wouldn't be doing it. I don't believe that, I mean, there are certain things that I'm going to leave out because I believe we're so much more. We are what welcoming schools wants us to be and more. We're it. We're a no place for hate school. And whenever we know about it, if we know about bullying, whether to whomever it is, we're going to try to handle that. I'm drawing a blank. Oh, and we're going to make mistakes along the way, like I did this morning. And one of the things that I do with my kiddos every morning, you know, I told them when I made the mistake and crawled upon my dresser, didn't listen to my mom and dad because they have wisdom, and that's why they tell us not to do things, and how I fell down, and that's why I broke my toe. You know, I model making mistakes left and right. Has anybody ever seen me do that? I mean, well, you've seen me do it just this morning, but so that's an easy answer straight in the air. But I model that, and so part of, I think, what Darla's trying to say is we haven't even gotten through the information enough to be able to share it with complete and open, honest dialogue with you. I would prefer, are y'all okay with us having another coffee talk in May where we bring the materials and maybe go through some of it with you? Maybe we could do a mini training of just some of, because I know. And I do think that sometimes it's confusing because
if you go to the Welcoming Schools website, you can find an entire page of lesson plans, right? Now, some of the lesson plans are lesson plans that teachers already do. So for example, if in third grade, there's sometimes a consumerism lesson where they might pull out magazines and pick out different ways that advertisers are trying to gear to a certain type of buyer. So that would be an example of where maybe they would look at different stereotypes. And that's not necessarily around gender, it could be around race, it could be around religion, national origin, all kinds of ways that there's diversity. But those lesson plans aren't even, that's not part of the Welcoming Schools expectation in Austin ISD. The Welcoming Schools process in Austin ISD is truly more about developing a mindset of awareness for how to respond. I really think that that's what is aligned with the goals. It's not about the lesson plans. There has not been a school that has said at the very end, like, okay, y'all, these are the lessons that we're gonna teach next year. Because we do a lot of this, just like Dr. Schneider's saying. We do a lot of this. It's so much more about how to respond and how to reinforce a culture and climate that is more welcoming, safe, and inclusive. Because we all want that already. We're all working towards that. There's just some ways that we can always improve and grow.
And I also think that doing a lesson plan, I'll come back to you, doing some of the, first of all, I didn't even know there were lesson plans, but I can tell you now we have no thoughts to use the lesson plans. Our teachers are busy enough. I do believe whenever you're looking at an approach like this, it is integrated. It's integrated in what you do, how you talk, how you treat other people. It's me standing up and saying, okay, I have to treat others with kindness, dignity, and respect. Maybe what I said didn't sound respectful. Let me deal with it right then and there. That kind of thing. Doing social emotional learning, talking about self-management right then and there with a student. Are you using your self-management? Are you using, whatever it is that we're doing that day? Relationship skills, whatever. You had a question.
I just wanted to ask if you do, when you come back around to doing this with us, if you could maybe have a time where working parents can attend.
We can do it in the evening then.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a great idea.
Yes. Two more, yes. One. Yes, yes. Yes, sir.
So you've talked at the beginning about at our own pace, the phrase that you use. That suggests that we have a place that we've started and that at some point this may expand. And I'm curious if you can speak about the plan or the framework for how you make future decisions. For example, we decided, Kiker, that now we need to have a different policy around bathrooms or other things. I'm saying, how do you expand beyond what you're saying today?
I see.
And what does that look like to us parents?
That's a really good question. And if I said at our own pace, I think what I meant was in our own way. Because I don't have an end goal for this. It's not like I look at this and think, oh, in 2 years we'll be bringing this to Kiker. Oh, in 4 years. I honestly don't. I see this as a way of life. That what all the things that I said this was, that is. And I'm not, all the things I said it's not, that it's not. So this piece of paper is, if I said, what did you say I said?
At our own pace.
At our own pace. This is at our own pace. Because not everybody's here. Not everybody is at every bullet. So that would be getting people to where they are. And if I did say at our own pace, I think I meant using Welcoming Schools in our own way. Does that better answer your question?
It does.
Because I don't.
My specific question is, I'm thinking as a given that you as teachers and staff are going to learn stuff as you go. And
Yes.
realize there are things that we're doing well and things we're not doing well, and maybe things we ought to be doing more than what's being disclosed here. And I would like to know if you have a specific plan about how that would roll out, as opposed to something showing up accidentally on a Facebook post.
Right.
But that probably wasn't a great rollout, and how do we know in the future, Kiker's decided we want to do more and we want to communicate that.
Right. That's a really good question. I mean, my intention is always to be transparent and get the information out there. Somebody got ahead of me with talking on Facebook, which usually when people get on Facebook and I find out about it, I call that person and give that person more information. But it became such a storm that I just decided to stay out of it because I didn't want to seem defensive. But I don't, the only thing I have a plan for is for inclusion of diversity and kindness and dignity and respect for all. And that sometimes that's hard. Sometimes it's hard for me to respect, I'm not gonna say what it would be because it'll polarize somebody, but it might be hard for me to, it's hard to follow the golden rule. It's hard. It's not an easy thing to do. It's easy to say, but it's not hard. It's hard to do. So the only thing that I expect that we're going to roll out is that we treat others with kindness, dignity, and respect, no matter who they are, what they eat, where they go to church, what they look like, what they dress like, what their family looks like, how they identify, this kind of business. As far as the bathrooms, that in and of itself is a policy that I guess may or may not come down, but we have had unisex bathrooms in our teachers' lounge forever because there's few men and we're in a hurry as ladies. So so we might, I don't know. I mean, I can't speak to the unisex because I'm going to follow district laws and policies, but as far as what it means for Kiker, as soon as I know something that's going to be a change, you're going to find out about it. And there are times when I think information is better shared face-to-face like this, which is why I was going to roll it out like this. And unfortunately, with people getting on Facebook and making assumptions, I had to send out information that was premature that would have been better had I been able to have a conversation. And I'm never going to be able to stop that. Because as soon as somebody hears, oh, Lori's going to have a coffee talk on X, they're going to go look it up to see what it is. And if there's information that's different than what I'm going to give, then it's going to look like I'm hiding something. And I can tell you, anybody that knows me, that has been with me for 14 years, next year will be my 15th year, knows that I've been transparent, or have tried to be. Would anybody care to agree that I've been as transparent as I possibly could be? Okay. So, to answer your question, I'm going to be as transparent as I can. I can't see into the future to know that something might come up that we might need to address. If we did and it was something big, I'd take it to my CAC. Okay?
I think you had a question.
Yes, sir, sorry. I hope I've answered your question.
First of all, thank you for being awesome.
Thank you, I needed to hear that this morning.
I have a really short incident that kind of shook me a little bit and kind of relates to all of this and how I should do, what I should do with it, share with my kids and stuff. First of all, I've been here for 20 years. We've been living here for 15 years. Doesn't seem that long. But you guys all have all been very welcoming, and I've never felt threatened or unsafe or anything negative being in the United States. I've become a United States almost citizen now. Then the last week, the very first time it happened, it kind of shocked me. I was in my grocery station, came out and I was crossing the road, and somebody rolled his the windows down and then just shouted, "Go home!" Right? And first it was like anger, disappointment, despair, thought about political climate, this and that. Went home, shared with my wife, and then I've been thinking about what to do with should I share it with my daughters or not? That's my question. What do you recommend? Like, I mean, do I share it?
I'm going to say, first of all, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for this community. Anybody in this community that would be a Kiker comment that would do that, and I hope it wasn't.
I think it was somebody that's not from this community.
But what I would say is that it's very real right now. What's happening in our nation and what's happening between adults is trickling down to children. It is. And kids are saying things to each other, mean things, like your mom's going to grow up and be wipe the floor, be a janitor, or this and that. Mean things.
And I'm gonna look to Darla and Randy for how to handle that with our community. And I don't think it's a quick answer, and I don't know that you should take that incident home to your daughters. What I would recommend just off the fly is wait, and if something comes to them, then address it, and then say, you know, I had an incident happen to me like this, and this is how I handled it. You know, I wouldn't, because it's gonna put fear in them, and they're so little. If they were with you, that would be one thing, but I wouldn't, I mean, that would be mine, is wait, and Randy too, is wait until, or if something were to happen, and then bring it up with how you responded.
We try really hard to keep some things in the adult world.
Yeah. And I'm just so sorry, and I'm so dang angry.
I was still for a long time, and I'm probably still angry when I think of it.
Well, you have a right to be, and the thing is, I hope that we can all make agreements to be kind to each other, and that's why when I hear people on Facebook writing things about other teachers or whatever, I do call that person and say, let's sit down and talk, because I think there's misinformation, because what I want for this community, and I really do feel like the little mayor of Circle C, but what I want for this community is more than tolerance, more than the word tolerance. I don't want to be tolerated as your principal. I want to be loved and revered and respected and treated with kindness, dignity, and respect, and know that I'm a human. And when I do make a mistake, like I did early, I want them to go, wow, she's a human just like us. She's going to make a mistake just like us. And we do have some work around that issue that I'd like us to talk about, and then take several more questions.
And I just wanted to say thank you for speaking your truth and for being so honest. And I think it's a testament to this community and how we can come together and kind of follow these norms, not even with a lot of intentionality, and have a conversation just like that. And that's exactly what this process is like with our staff. What we're doing right now is exactly what we do. We open up the dialogue in a way where we can kind of examine assumptions and hear stories and do some perspective taking, and then figure out how do we want to respond as a community. That was just a beautiful illustration, and again, thank you. That says a lot about how safe everybody feels here. So, yes, you had a question.
I did. So I think this kind of gets back to some of like what was on Facebook, and I did see some of that. I didn't follow like all the comments, but I think kind of what did happen is because the coffee talk maybe was, and I can only speak for myself, and what I assumed was the concern was announced kind of on short notice, like Thursday, and that this was Monday, and nobody had heard of it before, and we didn't know that we were using a modified version, you know, so I think that's...
And that's my fault.
Yeah.
I had been out sick, and I had been out sick, and Christy is my secretary, and again, I think part of the reason things happen, honestly, I'm just gonna be real honest, if you all wanna help me, is we have a very large school. We're larger than over 13 middle schools with less staff. So you guys see my truck here working. You know I'm doing the best I can, and sometimes things like that are gonna happen, and it's gonna cause what happened to happen. That's my fault, and I own it.
And thank you for doing that, but I I think the intention was not for malice or not to
No, there was no reason why.
It was just a
There was,
vacuum of information.
it was literally, we just didn't get it out. In fact, most of my coffee talks we don't get out in time and don't have the people, and it's not Christy's fault either. We're working as fast as, we're working and running as fast as we can to get it done, and
Those kids, the kids, they get away.
and honestly, and that's another thing I'll say, that this is how I work. I start with kids, my issues are kids, and I deal with kid issues. The second thing I deal with are parents and teacher issues, and then all other issues. So some of these things get bumped to the top, they just do, and I won't apologize for my very first and foremost concern being children. And I never want to move away from being a hands-on principal, and that means I want time with your kids every morning. I want to be with your kiddos, and so sometimes some of these other things get pushed to the back, and I'm sorry that that happened, and yes, ma'am.
Hi, I just wanted to say, I just want to say thank you for all of your hard work, for everyone. I love Kiker, and it's hard, I think, it's just the world today that I get where you're coming from is hard right now. And it's hard to be a teacher, it's hard to be a parent. I work with children. It's hard. It's hard to navigate all
That's a
kids,
great
I've
idea.
been background checked by the state many times. You know, or, you know what I mean? And then that way, if you have certain parents that maybe have gone through a shortened training, we can help disseminate
That's
some of the
That's a
basic
great idea.
principles, like
Yeah.
more little, not coffee talk, but like little
Yeah.
meetings.
Yeah, I
where
love that.
we
Where
can
y'all
just,
actually
like,
go through a piece of the
right,
training.
so like,
Yeah.
parents that have
That's
the
a great
time or
idea.
the availability or want help,
pilot
can
that.
undergo
Yeah,
this,
good.
have ideas together as parents and kind of collaborate with what's happening with the teacher training and then help disseminate this information
Thank you.
in a more uniform
Because a
way.
lot of the strategies, I have 2 teenagers, I've used with my
Randy, can you
kids.
send a
You know,
sign-in
when they
sheet
come
around?
to me with situations and I
No,
go.
no, we're gonna send in a
Yeah.
sign-in sheet, so that if you are interested in signing up for a training of parents, and we could do a modified version, you can, with your group, decide what that would look like, and we could do, you know.
We've had a few requests for something, we're just working.
Yeah,
towards that.
yeah, we'll send home,
Yeah.
we'll send around a list and just sign your name on it.
That way we can all
Wow,
be
love
on the
it.
same page and-
Yeah, it's a
Love
nice
it.
opportunity to have a conversation, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
we'll do that, yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to go back to the Facebook issue. I think that a lot of this could have been alleviated if people had gone directly to you or directly to the school. I understand that there was a limited time frame, but if you don't have the information, then maybe you should be putting it out there to make assumptions about it and wait until the coffee talk or what have you. But the school board member did contact Dr. Schneider on a weekend, did put out basically all the information that she's gone through here. It was all covered, and yet the conversation still continued with misinformation. So I think that there's some personal responsibility that we as parents need to take about what we put out there. And maybe not so many assumptions.
No, but she took information off, sorry, the person took information off the website, so I don't, and that person's mine, and I don't know the person.
I was the original poster.
But I'm okay.
But it
And I'm just taking it from them,
She
I'm
just
trying to
copied the
details out of
website.
here.
No, I
They
know,
take
but it
information off the website.
wasn't
They
the,
said it's
no, it
not
wasn't the
getting that.
original post that was the problem. It was
No,
the conversation.
because of the training was the trigger.
Right, but then that was answered later on. That was answered by Yasmin, by our school board member.
I know,
We
but
had
that
the
was like a day later, right?
No, it was in the same day. It was with, it
Because
was,
the post started at 7:45 and 49.
okay, well then it was on Saturday.
Yeah,
that it
yeah.
happened, So it wasn't a full day later.
Yeah.
But I mean,
No,
be it
we
was a
were-
weekend. My point just being that feelings were hurt, things were said, assumptions were made, and it didn't have to happen.
Yeah.
Didn't have to.
Extra?
Well, I think that addresses the fact that this is all great, and you do a great job of creating this environment here of KDR. My question is really more AISD. Of all the anti-bullying curriculum out there, I think a lot of the conversation that got ugly was regarding the particular curriculum. So why did AISD pick that curriculum?
Especially considering it's been so modified already, that like maybe it wasn't the best fit for our community if we already had to modify it down so much. Why did we end up where we end up choosing this curriculum?
And I'm sorry, just to add it in, this curriculum was created by a political lobbying group with an agenda. So that's the concern. I'm comforted that we're gonna be taking bits and pieces, but when we look at the source, that's a concern.
And that's something you can definitely take back to your group, because I know that was one of, I know that Yasmin wanted to be here today. She fully supported us pulling bits and pieces of this. She could not be here today, so I don't want to speak for her. I think she put a few things on Facebook. She was really trying to be of help and support to me as the leader, knowing where my heart is and knowing that this is something that AISD has chosen.
The board approved the training, and there is policy that protects students and staff against discrimination and bias-based bullying. And so that was the beginning of the search for something that we could do to equip our staff with ways to respond. So that's where it started. And I hear so many great questions and curiosities and concerns, and it's inspiring, it truly is. And I think it would be a good idea to extend the conversation in some capacity and explore some more ideas about learning more about it and how we can do that, because I don't know what our time frame is or where we are, but.
Yeah, well,
But thank you,
I
I appreciate the question.
I guess I am wanting to take a few more questions because I don't want misinformation out there, and I know there's gonna be anyway, but we do have a very large school, and I am working as hard as I can, and there are gonna be times when I don't get information out there, and that's what worries me. But there's a question here and a question there, so over here.
Really, I just want to say I support this, and I'm glad that you're not. You know, it seems like a lot of people are making you backtrack a little, apologize all over yourself for doing this. And, you know, I would just urge you to take a firm stand. And that teachers do need that. The forms we come home with mom and dad, and I don't think I've got any from y'all, so I'm happy about that. But we do get forms, and small things like that that I hope this will address. And things like library books, and, you know, ancestry. Our son had the ancestry project. And for a lot of people, that's not a big deal. For a child that has a different background, that was a lot of stress. So, you know, I'm hoping that your teachers get this training to help the students and help the parents ease through those projects that bring a little more stress than they do for more conventional families. And just for you back there, you know, my son has brown skin. They get it here at school too. We talked to our son about what he might experience, because he came home saying kids said they were going to send him back to Mexico or something. You know, so we did have to have that talk. And that's the thing, parents don't realize your kids pick up all sorts of things here. So even though it might seem like they're too young to have to deal with this, in my experience, my 7-year-old already knows way more than I wish he did. That's all I want to say.
You know what we can do, I just thought of, is Randy and Darla can sit together and come up with talking points for your children. Because honestly, I don't feel comfortable having a morning assembly when it doesn't impact everybody. But I would like to have talking points out there for adults to have with their children. Do you think that would help, sir?
Yeah. We have some resources.
So if y'all could get together, we could put out a letter that says, in light of the political, whatever, blah, 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 these kinds of conversations may come home from school. And just know that, first of all, the kids are hearing it from each other, but they're hearing it from somewhere other than each other. They're not making it up. So we need to remember that it's the adults really too, that when we send that letter out, we're addressing them as well. Does that make sense? Yes, ma'am.
So this question is for Darla. I know that you said some of these policies have come through the board, and I know we have some questions that perhaps you're still working through, but it would be great to understand if the board has another meeting that's going to address some of these new policies so that we can participate and ask them directly what some of these questions that we still have. Do you know when something new is coming so that we can prepare and not be, you know, on our heels trying to get to new meetings, but have them on our calendar, be prepared to, you know, with questions maybe sending in advance so that they're prepared to also answer?
And that's a great question, and I think the best next step would be to provide some resources, information through AISD and some of the board policy, and figure out a way that you have time to kind of look at all that information and what's happened and what has not happened and why that's aligned with welcoming schools. I know Dr. Cruz has put out some things before and communicated some of the board policy regarding anti-bullying. And so I think that's something that we can get to you, and that would be a good place to start, because I know I can't answer all your questions today around it, but that's a good one. It's a very good question.
I think we could follow up with maybe, I'm trying to figure out what kind of forum we could do where y'all could send in your questions. And then I know Yasmin, I know she would have been here. She told me she would have been here if she could.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these, she kind of felt bad that it's fallen on me, because there is some AISD behind it. And when I'm picking and choosing from what AISD has to offer. And again, the reason I picked Welcoming Schools is because one of our sister schools had already done it, and because I felt like all the things on the sheet that I said we already were doing those things. And so I felt like we are a welcoming school. We do welcome we welcome anybody and everybody, and you can feel it when you walk through the front doors. And so I wanted something that welcomed all of that. No, I didn't go in and look at that there were lesson plans for children and that kind of thing. I've been working, with Darla on what's appropriate for us and for our school and for our teachers. So, and that's again my fault for not doing more homework. And I'm not trying to apologize all over myself. I am standing firm that all of the things that I said that we are about. And I have it in writing here. I have it in writing in our handbook. I stand by these things. What it says we're not, that it's not, and I stand by that. And so that's, to me, that is something you can take home, you can take to the bank. You can know with certainty that the things I said, that we are going to be an inclusive, a welcoming school, a welcoming of all, whether it's coming, I could go through all the differences. The bottom line is we all have strengths, we all have struggles, and we all have differences, and we all add value to each other. And that's how I feel. That's the bottom line that I feel. As far as curriculums go and things like that.
And I would say you are doing very good work.
Yeah.
So these questions have nothing to do with what you're doing, because I'm a brown person in this school, and I love that. I sit at assembly, I know you've seen me with this little guy, and we listen, and I like the talks. They're real life things that really help them. It's about, I'm not comfortable with that. It's kindness, dignity, and respect. And I'm so for that. And what you put in this document, that you don't feel comfortable with some of these things for this age of students, is right on, and I support that.
Thank you.
But there's a larger, question that my son is going to be going into middle school. He's going to be going into high school. And some of these policies I still don't understand. So when I ask questions about, what can we do to educate ourselves about that diversity and loving diversity, because I'm part of that too, it's nothing to do with
Yes.
the job you're doing.
Yes,
It's,
thank you.
I just need more information, and I know that it's not from the school, it's from AISD, and so that's why I was wanting to get
And
more
ma-
information. So thank you.
Maybe we
Yeah,
could do a
thank you for
coffee,
your
maybe we could do
interest.
another talk with yourself, Yasmin, and the middle school principal, because I think it takes on a more different flavor when you're moving into middle school. Honestly, I'm not touching that one. But, that's kind of where I think some of your questions, I would think you have questions about what it's gonna look like in middle school. And so, Darla, if we could set something up, I would say sooner than later, with Yasmin Wagner, because I know she would love to be here, and then maybe the middle school principal.
Yeah, because
or
what
at
I'm
least one of
hearing is
them.
that you want to know more about how everything is aligned.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
What
And that's
it
good.
looks
I
like,
appreciate your
terms
interest.
are used, this is our world, and my beliefs are very true to me and to people, and I want to make sure that I'm teaching what I need to teach at home.
The term,
That says, okay, there's some mean people in this world, we've heard it, and so I go home and I say, this is what we believe, and we pray about it, and we say, this is what we know to be true. It's the golden rule, it's to love your neighbor as you love yourself, and these are real things that, I have to take the world, and then I have to talk to my child about what it means to really love someone, even though you don't know where they're coming from. And so I need to know what y'all are treating our kids,
So
and I
the-
know where to come from.
so that you know, to answer the terminology that I use is on this page. It's in our student handbook, or it's what I send home every Friday or Monday if Christy gets to it, about what we talked about. That's the terminology that we're using. You can take that to the bank. And if I do something different, like have a conversation with fifth graders, then the fifth grade parents get a letter saying about the conversations I've had with them. Tomorrow, yes.
I just want to say how grateful I am that you're doing this. I remember when my daughter was starting kindergarten 6-7 years ago, she already had a little boy in her class who was identifying as a girl. And I remember going with her mom to, pick kindergartens. It was in Seattle, not here, and just not knowing if there was going to be a comfortable space, a welcoming space in those schools. And so I know that we're kind of putting that off into middle school and high school, but it is happening in elementary school. It's happening even younger. And I'm really glad that all the inclusiveness that we do have, I appreciate the fact that Welcoming Schools focuses on, sexuality sounds a little old for this group, but I mean gender, and identifying that. And I wish it would have been around 6 years ago for that little boy, and I'm glad it's going to be around for all the kids who are going through it now. So thank you for including this.
Rebecca?
I just think y'all are doing a great job of creating dialogue and conversation in a very respectful way where there have, I think, been a lot of big emotions, and it's just been, you've just set a great tone. And like you said, I think we are getting this in the chunk and chew, like we're getting this first round of information, and so we're getting what it is, we're processing it, we're thinking through what does this mean for my family, what does it mean for our kids, what does it mean for our school, and it's just going to generate a lot more questions that in light of just how things have gone in the past when there wasn't as much information, as these questions that come up, would there be a way for us to email them to you guys and you kind of keep a list that we can then address at a coffee talk or something sooner than later, so that it doesn't create these spirals of like, well, this is what I took away from it, is this what it means, is this where it's going, and it creates this, you
Right.
know.
We want to create a safe space.
Yeah, I can address it sooner than later so that people don't take it for what it is or isn't, and we just are going to have more questions as we walk away that we're going to need to be able to process with the people who are in
That's
charge.
something important to consider.
So I understand that there's going to be more questions. I just wish, and hope that you will look at what I said it's going to be at Kiker, because that to me is something you can hold on to. I know there's going to be more questions. I don't know how to filter that. I have to say I'm open to more questions. I'm looking for a manageable way to receive the questions, put them together, and be able to answer, because some are for me, some are for Darla, some are for Yasmin, some are for Paul Cruz. I'm only addressing me, what we're doing, and I'm addressing what I said we're going to do here is welcome everybody, and in the best way that we can, and that what I said what it is and what I said it isn't is what it is. I'm not going to turn around tomorrow and change my mind and all of a sudden hand out lesson plans. That's why I've gone longer and missed a couple of appointments, because I've wanted, if there are questions, to get them out now, because I don't want people walking away and going, well, what da-da-da-da-da-da. So, I mean, it's like I want to know. It's like, I am surprised in a little bit of a way, because people have trusted me so far so much that there's a little surprise, and maybe I shouldn't have been, maybe I shouldn't be surprised, but I must admit I am a little bit, just because I have felt so supported and so trusted in the past with your children, that now I'm feeling like, what can I do to get you to trust me more, so that your first instinct is, well, Schneider's there. Like by my door, there's a sign that says, be calm, Schneider's the principal, or something like that. But just, I may not be saying this the right way.
Are you saying ask questions first before it blows up social media?
Say again?
Are you saying ask questions first before going to social media?
I'm just surprised that many of the people that have known me over the years have not known me to act in a certain way, and I feel like I was boxed into, well, she's going to do X, Y, or Z, and it felt really uncomfortable to be on my side, because I felt like I would not intentionally.
You and your teachers weren't given the benefit of the doubt, is what it
I guess that's how it felt. And so, yes, I welcome more questions, and I'm not trying to say that I don't welcome more questions. I do. I'm looking for a manageable way to do that. because I would stay here all day and answer questions if I could, and there will be more out in the community. So now my encouragement would be to take what I said that is it to the bank. I would ask people to look at Kiker's website, Kiker's information, and then, you know, you look at people based on their history of how they lead and go, well, I can probably bet or guess this is going to happen. Am I going to make mistakes? Absolutely, I am. Am I limited by time? I am. But I was surprised. I even wondered, should I push it off now another week? Because there was the timing thing. But then I thought, no, people are gonna read into that. So at that point, there was nothing I could do, and I have to tell you that after 14 years of being principal here, it felt weird because I felt like, wow, I'm not being trusted, and I'm not used to that. I'm used to you guys trusting me with your children, and I hope that will continue. And I know that just because you have questions doesn't mean you don't trust me. It just felt a little bit like that this weekend. But I knew, you know, that I knew my HP was with me, and that I'm, you know, going to handle this the best way I, you know, can, and we're
in a
going to have to,
developmentally appropriate way.
and
right, because that's a key phrase.
And you're going to have to help me with what is appropriate. I mean, how to manage all of these questions, because I'm a little bit blown away, and I need your help.
It's okay. It's okay. We think we got this.
I posted on the website because I trusted that you would have this kind of conversation with us this week. I want you to hear that.
Yeah, thank you. I don't know what you posted.
I just posted that this was happening Monday morning, and it was short notice. A lot of people hadn't heard about it.
And I'm so sorry for the short notice.
I was hearing about it in other places and other venues, and there was already a lot of stuff swirling. And so it's, to me, this is how, I mean, yes, there are concerns. There's still information we don't know, but.
So Lisa,
that's why
from now on, if you can help me get my coffee talks out a week and a half, 2 weeks in advance.
Every single one this is, I mean, it's not a surprise that this is a charged issue. This is.
I know.
I mean, we're all we want to love each other as best we can, but also, it's a hard one for a lot of families in our culture and in our society. And I'm not even saying it's hard for me the same way it's hard for someone else. I mean, there were particular developmentally inappropriate things that I saw on the website for elementary school, and you and I may completely agree on what those are.
Right, which is why I said this part is not, we didn't leave this out on accident. We left it out on purpose because it's not what we're doing.
Yeah, and we just, so this,
but are we
a
going
unique situation, and I think that
But are we going to embrace everybody? Yes, we are going to embrace everybody. And it is hard to respect. It is hard. How can I say this?
We're all on a different journey in our place of understanding. And that's just a compassionate place that we all need to stay for each other and within our self-compassion too, right? And that's I think we all just need to think about that. Take deep breaths.
Michael had something to say.
So I hear and I know you preach kindness, dignity, and respect, KDR. And we should start putting that as a logo to school shirts. I think what threw me off was, why are you bringing this in now? Because to me, kindness and dignity and respect, it just introduces inclusion, you know, and where the source rate came from. If anything, if the school district is pushing this requirement down to you, I say that's the wrong direction. I mean, you are principal of the year. They should be coming to you. Yeah. They should be taking KDR and pushing it to junior high and high school. I mean, my question to you is, I hate to say this because I know you don't have time in life because you're so busy, but I mean, what are you doing, or what is the school board doing to come to you? You know, that's the bigger approach that I would hope that would go on across all the school district. And I'm not trying to isolate anyone or encourage anyone, but that's what threw me off is like, why are you doing this now? Because you're already promoting this. So, what extra value are you going to bring because it's already here?
I think that would be a great letter to write.
Sure.
I do. Because I picked the elements that I felt like we were already already doing. That's the bottom line. And you can see that on the written piece of paper. You know, there are things that, you know, are either mandates or where there are expectations, and
I think it was an opportunity too to enhance an already very strong toolkit that the staff has here, and maybe create some more learning opportunities that we haven't had yet. You know, because we're always all learning and growing. I totally agree that Dr. Schneider has done a beautiful job of creating that climate and culture that invites opportunities for kids to be kind and have dignity and be respectful, and the staff too, and that this was just a way to enhance it and embrace new learning and have conversations. That's part of it for sure, I think.
so,
This has been a broad discussion about something
Yes,
I
sir.
very much support and appreciate, but I have a very specific question about what is being taught to the teachers and how that might reflect the students. The question is about gender-specific or gender-neutral pronouns. Are the teachers being taught the value or the danger, depending on how you think about it, about using gender-neutral pronouns? Like, for example, instead of saying he or she, saying they, things like that. And if they are, is there any possibility that that's going to be reflected in their communication in the classroom, saying they instead of she or he?
That's a good question. Are you talking about, like, are we teaching teachers to discuss this and bring this topic up?
First question is, are you teaching teachers to use it themselves to model gender neutral pronouns? Second question, will that at all come into play if a teacher uses they and a student wonders, why didn't she say she? I'm a girl.
Right. And first of all, I think the best way to think about it is that it's on a case-by-case situation. That's, in my experience, it isn't something that it's taught, like, or it's not even a question that's asked. Even at the high school level, from what I understand in my experiences, students may go to a teacher and say, hi, this is my name, my preferred pronoun is this, right? And the teacher can decide, you know, if she's gonna honor that pronoun. But at the elementary level, are we teaching that specifically? We have a conversation that there is, you know, their preferred pronouns is something that exists. That's part of that accept non-closure, because there's probably 12 new preferred pronouns as
we
we've
don't
been
teach
here
them
today.
to do that.
We don't teach them that this is a strategy. That's not it. It's really just about how to respond. So if there was a situation that would create a response where we could be more welcoming, safe, and inclusive to students or families, we would probably explore that on a case-by-case basis, just like you would any other situation, whether a child had a special need or a special requirement or a dietary restriction or whatever it would be. I think from what I've noticed in the way that you practice to do what's best for kids, that would be the approach. But no, teachers are not being taught, okay, teachers, you need to ask every child what their preferred pronoun is and follow that. That's not what's being taught.
Or even teaching them to say, not say he or she.
Right.
There are little nuances, like for me, I've always said moms and dads. And so for me to add caregivers or guardians to my language, just to be a little bit more understanding and open, and to maybe on our paper, maybe on our papers to try to put parent instead of mom or dad. Be more mindful of things like that. Be more mindful for any parent that might, for any family that might be different. That they could have aunts and uncles as parents or guardians, and so it just says parent, and that's where they sign instead of mom and dad. And then, because they have to cross out mom and then write aunt or whatever.
Thank you for your question.
Does that help answer your
question? Yes, I think in this stuff